One of the funny things about jihad is that the jihadis constantly tell us what they're going to do. And then we constantly say, nah, you're not really going to do that. None of that's really going to happen. And there's quite a lot of that this week. In Turkey, it's a very interesting thing happened. The president, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, he said to a crowd just the other day, are we ready for the attack of 2023? Now, I don't know about you, but it sounds to me like he's talking about attacking Greece in 2023. And his lieutenant, one of the members of his ruling coalition, Devlet Bahçeli, he said the blue homeland, so the blue homeland, Greece, is on stolen land. Stolen land, I thought, that's extraordinary because that's the same rhetoric that is constantly used against Israel. It's also lesser known, but it is used in Spain. Correct. So the premise is that any land that belonged to Islam at any point belongs by right to Islam forever. And this in turn is based on chapter 2, verse 191 of the Quran. Very simply, drive them out from where they drove you out. If you were there and you got driven out, you have a responsibility before Allah to fight back and take it back.
It's just amazing that an ideology, a religion that fought its way out of Arabia, conquering through the Middle East, across northern Africa, up into Europe and Spain, and then eastward through Iran and Afghanistan, Pakistan, and into India, is the same ideology and religion that says, hey, if you control something at some point, the people who have it need to give it back. It's like, do you hear what you're saying here? I mean, do you have any clue what you're saying?
I think this is a group that has a marvelous lack of self-awareness. Let's go to Australia. And a former researcher at the University of Western Australia, a charming individual named Abdussalam Adinazada. And Abdussalam Adinazada has just been jailed for 3.5 years for advocating terrorism via YouTube videos. So there's no indication, at least in this story from Australian Broadcasting Company, that Abdussalam Adinazada got in any trouble with YouTube. Meanwhile, he's saying bloodshed is coming, and he was inviting it. He says work should start, jihad should start, mujahideen should advance, we must not be afraid of death. That under some circumstances, all Muslims must engage in jihad as warfare.
Muhammad said in the hadith, if anyone meets Allah without wounds on his body from fighting the unbelievers, he meets him with a deficiency. In other words, think about that. That's a message to all Muslims over the world. If you stand before Allah and you do not have visible wounds on your body for fighting the unbelievers, Muhammad says you're an incomplete Muslim.
Yep. And so, meanwhile, also in Turkey, Gülsen Bayraktar Kolakolu, a pop singer, and she was arrested for saying that the Turkish religious schools, the Imam Hotep schools, they are encouraging perversion. The translation of Allahu Akbar that we constantly get in the Western press is God is great. Allahu Akbar does not mean God is great. Kabir is great. Akbar is greater. Allahu Akbar is Allah is greater. The implication being greater than your God. And there's a terrible story out of Lebanon. Hana Mohammed Kodor was pregnant, and she was badly beaten and set on fire by her husband because she refused his order to get an abortion.
You can have a husband who's just a hothead, and you could have that from any background. It could be an atheist, could be a Christian, and someone just flips out. My wife didn't listen to me, I'll kill her. But there, as you often point out, there's a religion that actually encourages that, right? That encourages the violent reaction, right? Most other groups in the world say, yes, guys, you may have, you may want to just flip out of life. You need to control that. You need self-control. And not get physical. get physically violent with your wife. And there's a religion out there that says no, it's actually good and it's okay with Allah and His messenger.
A culture of violence is created by the justification for the beating of women who are disobedient, and then it's the line that's drawn is entirely subjective. Some guy might have his wife with her skin green from bruises, and he says, well, I beat her lightly. It was lightly as far as he was concerned. All right, and Kita Kumari, terrible story in India. This is a man named Shahrukh Hussain who lived next door to her, constantly trying to date her, trying to get her to get into a relationship with him. She continually rejected him. Finally, he set her on fire, and she died with burns over 90% of her body. Out of Pakistan, another Hindu, an 8-year-old girl, victimized, gang raped, and then they stabbed her in both eyes, apparently so that she would not be able to identify the perpetrators. But these things ultimately are all justified by the permission the Quran gives for the sexual use of infidel women, and by the permission the Quran gives to do violence to women from whom one perceives disobedience.
If everyone who's watching just learns one or two really important things about Muhammad and then goes out and shares them with someone, and then those people then share them, pretty soon those things become common knowledge, and that's ball game. Then it's the avalanche is in full effect.
Out of Germany, same story. A Muslim had disputes with his wife, and in front of their 5 children, ages 1 to 11, he killed her, stabbing her 30 times because she wanted to live in a Western manner.
Any guy could be a total scumbag and just go off and kill his wife and stuff like that. But it seems to be much more prevalent among adherents of the religion that encourages violence against women. And it's just a guess on my part, but I don't think that's a coincidence.
It should be emphasized. It's not just that it's in the Quran, and so it's okay. Being in the Quran makes it a sacred act. It being in the Quran means that you are performing an act of obedience to Allah when you beat a woman from whom you fear disobedience. So it's not just by way of concession. It becomes almost sacramental. It becomes something that is a holy thing to do.
I'm sure you have guys who think that it is their religious obligation to beat their wives.
Oh, no doubt about it. They have to. How could they not? It's the perfect word of Allah. You may have seen the video out of Belgium, out of Brussels, of a van plowing, driving onto a terrace, plowing into a bunch of people who were out eating lunch. 6 people were injured. Interesting thing, what do you think the guy's name was? His first name? Just take a guess. I know there's billions of first names in the world, but what do you think the guy's first name was?
Okay, he says go with Muhammad.
Muhammad. Now, I never would have thought. I would have thought, Bill or Joe or Fred, but Muhammad is correct, actually. 80,000 people displaced in Mozambique by jihadis, 40 murdered in the Democratic Republic of the Congo, a guy trying to set up a jihad training center in New Mexico, a guy plotting a jihad attack, a mass murder, mass casualty attack in New York City, the people in Nigeria. In Nigeria, I got here a quote that I wanted to give us before we go. A gentleman who is working in Nigeria with a peace organization, he said, "We are dealing here with a sustained campaign to wipe out Christianity in general, and the Catholic Church in particular. No Christian is safe." Oh, Austria. In Austria, there was a young Muslim migrant, an Algerian, who molested 2 young women. And he was sentenced to 8 months in prison and sex therapy. We have a story out of the U.S. State Department. It actually it's somewhat of a surprise. There was the terrible story a few months ago of the student in Sokoto in Nigeria, Deborah Samuel Yakubu, who was murdered by Muslims, set on fire, as we've already had a couple of stories of women being set on fire already this week. She was set on fire after complaining to her Muslim classmates that they were using a school bulletin board for dawah, and she asked them to stop because it wasn't for dawah, it was for school announcements. And they accused her of blasphemy and murdered her. Now, the U.S. State Department actually honored her and put up a picture on August 22nd, the International Day commemorating the victims of violence based on religion or belief.
I have to say, every generation that says we need to look the other way and leave this to the next generation has blood on their hands for the blood that is shed from that next generation.
Dear Muslim friends, if your Muslim leaders cannot properly represent Allah, the Quran and Muhammad, do you expect them to properly represent the Bible? If they lie to you about the Quran and the Bible, what else are they lying to you about? If you choose the God of the Jews and Christians, you must read the scriptures of the Jews and Christians to know their God. If you like what we do, please support this channel by subscribing and pressing the bell to be notified when a new episode is uploaded. Also, don't forget to like and share.